Not far from home in Wales, we have Snowdon. There are different paths, different ways of climbing it. There is even a little steam train. Life is rather like that. Snowdon we must conquer. We must be safely home once time is ended. As one looks at Catholic history, one sees many routes undertaken by the saints of God. It so happens that on this day, the 23rd of July, there is a combination of routes coinciding. On the one hand, locally in Cardiff, where I was actually brought up, not far from school, on Richmond Road, was the National Provincial Bank. At the end of what used to be called Gallows Field. And when in school, before class, I'd be serving Holy Mass in St. Peter's Church, not far from there, because it was nearly opposite the school. In those days the priests wanted an altar boy. They still had individual celebrations. And as I went in and put my bag there, as the parish priest had allowed me to, inside the porch, I'd look at the series of 6 stained glass windows of the 2 local saints who had been hanged, drawn and quartered at that point. One call came, and it was a call not like any other. It was the call of the executioner. And in this stained glass window they were playing a simple form of tennis within their cell. And they simply said, as they were summoned to the gallows at that point, could we please finish this game? There is then another one, the absolution, and one priest gives absolution to the other, and on it goes to the gruesome details of being hanged, drawn and quartered, the maximum torture they could find for high treason, all as a result of the fictitious popish plot, that famous Titus Oates affair. It was late in time, and our own St. Oliver Plunkett was caught up in it, that is, in the wake of its terrible results. It was all artificial, of course. So, the one, St. Philip Evans, in whose church actually I met my eventual abbot, Father Kevin. He used to be a friend of the parish priest there and supply. St. Philip Evans was born at Monmouth in 1645, and he was executed there with St. John Lloyd's in 1679 on Richmond Road in Cardiff. Himself had studied at Saint-Omer and entered the Jesuits. Following his ordination in 1675, he worked secretly in Wales, he was one of the few who was able to, until he was arrested as a result of the fictitious popish plot. He was hanged, drawn and quartered, and now this is the very day, the 22nd of July, 1679, in Gallows Field, professing to die for God and religion's sake, that is nothing political. The other, St. John Lloyd, was born earlier in time in 1630, and he was originally from Brecon. He studied at Valladolid in Spain, which is still actually in the hands of the Catholic Church as a place of study for those preparing for the priesthood for England and Wales. The first disciple, and the Irish are also using it by now, and worked as a mission priest in Wales for over 20 years. He was lucky to get away with it, actually. Arrested in 1678, he suffered with St Philip Evans at Cardiff. And I remember the day that they were canonised, we had a huge celebration in the grounds of Cardiff Castle. Of course, the Marquis of Bute had handed over the use of the grounds of Cardiff Castle for the Catholic Church for Corpus Christi. It was one of the largest Corpus Christi processions in England and Wales. So there they were. As it was happening in Rome, we were celebrating this in Cardiff, and it was very moving, these names coming up, all known to us, St John Roberts, St Richard Gwynne, St Philip Evans, John Lloyd, and on it went with the other 36 from England. And most of them suffered at Tyburn, not all, and it was a gory business. We forget the details, but they need to be borne in mind, as well as what preceded it, the rack and the manacles. Awful torture. And often in the Tower of London, that tower which is still standing and contains many memories. I was struck some years ago when I had to go to London and I got out of the tube, was Tower Hill was still there, standing. That's where it all happened. They would be taken on these hurdles. A hurdle was a thing without wheels. They were bumped on the road behind the horses' tails till they got to the place of execution. And Oliver Plunkett, of course, calmly said, when he was told what he was going to receive at the sentence, your body will be carried hence, and so on, simply, Deo gratias. So that was one way of getting to glory. In the monastic life, they saw the advantage not of fleeing persecution anymore, but of staying in the desert voluntarily. And that led to the white martyrdom of losing the will, giving all to penance and praise and listening, union with the one who made us. And that grew and multiplied very quickly. The deserts became filled with saints, unknown to history, except one or two who left a trace, some of which were quite puzzling. When asked for a word, one answered, if my silence does not speak to you, what can my words do? But then we have these. On this day, St. Bridget, who is now one of the patron saints of Europe, along with St. Benedict, of course, and the saints of the East, Cyril and Methodius, and these other two holy women, St. Catherine of Siena, who also died in Rome, having helped to get, like St. Bridget, the Pope back from Avignon to Rome, and then the recently canonized St. would have been Edith Stein, Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. And I was actually present in Rome at her canonization, a very moving event. St. Bridget was born in Sweden and married Ulf Gudmarsson in 1316. She was born in 1303. It was a happy marriage, and the devout couple brought up 8 children, including St. Catherine of Sweden. Now her body is in another chapel in the convent of the Brigittine nuns near the English College in Rome. And I've celebrated the tomb of that saint, but also in the main chapel, which is actually very quaint. You still face the other way, they haven't changed it. And those 2 saints, mother and daughter, both canonized, are there. Interesting. After Ulf's death in 1344, she founded a religious community, the Brigittines, and received a number of mystical revelations, and she is known for these. They have led to the diffusion, still popular in our day actually, of the Brigittine prayers, with promises attached, and if one goes through them, one sees the details of the Passion, and they are worth meditating upon, for each gory detail is there, and our martyrs were imitating the Lord, let's never forget that, and conform to him at the moment of death. Like rockets they went unto glory, with all the virtue and merit of Calvary. She corresponded with European monarchs, promoting peace and the return of the papacy from Avignon to Rome. Now in that she had something in common with St. Catherine of Siena, although she wouldn't be writing so much as speaking. She hardly could write actually, but she was dictating things. She made pilgrimages to Jerusalem and Rome, where she spent her final years. Well, of course, she's buried. Now, the fact that she was attracted to the humanity of our Saviour will explain why she went on this penitential pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And it would also explain the devotion of her descendants, the Brigittine nuns, to that same humanity, and a desire to have a house close to the place where the Incarnation took place. And I've stayed in that convent, very close to the grotto in Bethlehem, and I was quite moved when they helped me to be able to concelebrate at the Latin Mass they have sung, in which they helped to sing on a Thursday at the crack of dawn at the Holy Grotto. And a good local priest, I forget where he might have been a Franciscan, ceded his place to me so that I could be the third, or even the second celebrant at that, because they used to have priest, deacon and subdeacon, and now they have 3 concelebrants. But essentially, one senses the continuity. It's still sung in Latin with Gregorian chant, with incense, and very well. We have the altar of the manger, and the Greeks have the altar at the principal side of the grotto, which is only small anyway, and the old rubrics say once the Greeks have finished, the Latins have their Mass, and so it can be a matter of waiting a quarter of an hour either way, because the Greeks don't time things quite as we do. It's always relative, and that's not a bad thing, because we don't measure God in time. But those places are holy places, and one sees why these nuns are glad to be close to them. There is one interesting video one can see on YouTube of a strange miracle that happened in that very grotto some years ago. It was just an ordinary good pilgrim who didn't realise that his camcorder was on, and he's going around with his devotions, and at a certain point one sees the Holy Child at the very point where he came to earth, and he's blessing, it seems, greeting those there. It only lasts a tiny moment, but it can be slowed down. It is definitely there. And one feels something of the same in the Holy Sepulchre. Indeed, modern instruments have picked up that there is huge energy there, not only at the moment of the explosion of the Holy Light, Hagia Vos, but also throughout the year. Sensitive instruments can pick up strange bursts of energy in that holy place right through the night when there's no one there. There is power there. It's not surprising when one thinks of the moment of the resurrection. And scientists have gone into what happened there and have found that it is actually an event horizon when something inexplicable has happened, which can only be explained in terms of, as it were, the equivalent of the creation of the universe once again, its power. From the Holy Shroud one can see that the moment of ignition, the moment of resurrection, the body was actually suspended in the air. Because there are no traces of folding, bending at the moment of the leaving of the imprint there. But this is what we have here, and all those who go unto glory go unto that power. So marriage, the white martyrdom of the monastic life. Martyrdom, it's an expression of charity, or in its own mode. But the soul is going in the same direction. And we notice actually that very generously and interestingly and open-mindedly, when St. Paul VI was canonizing the Ugandan martyrs, he did say, let us not forget the Anglicans, that is, those who belong to the Anglican communion, who also suffered martyrdom here. Because martyrdom is a reminder that grace is on the side of man, and in terms of eternity, the important thing is doing all we can with the use of time. With regard to a specifically Catholic faith, we have the fullness, and the martyrs died for it. So if there's any doubt in one's mind, one has to lift that doubt. As Newman saw, one can't just juggle with intellectual gain, because also the faith of the soul is linked with the conscience and the will, and it's part of the operation of surrender. All the faculties, internal and external, are handed on. This we must do, and there where we are in life correspond. Today, hic et nunc, for the proposition is the same, bonding with the one who made us. Let one mortal flesh keep silence, and with fear and trembling stand. Ponder nothing earthly minded, for with blessing in his hand, Christ our God to earth descended, our full homage to demand. King of kings yet born of many, as our Lord his throne. Lord, O Lord, the human vesture, in the body and the blood, he will give to all the faithful his unselful heavenly food. But I know that the host of heaven spread his banner on the way, as the light of light descended from the realms of endless day, that the powers of hell did vanish, as the darkness cleared away. At his feet the saints ring stand up, cherubim with sleepless eyes, with their faces to the presence, as with ceaseless voice they cry.